All right. So, hey everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Gabby Nitsukason, Pagchahanse Utsinia, Mishan Dengwe, Anquat Gwendishnakas, Pagchahanse Ndonjaba, Umamawene Nishnabe, King and Donji. My name is Gabrielle Fayant. My family's originally from Fishing Lake Metis Settlement. However, I do live here in Ottawa on unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin territory. And so I'm one of the co-founders and helpers with Assembly of Seven Generations, or A7G. And we do some really cool youth work here in Ottawa, a lot of land-based learning and just like bringing folks together and all that good stuff. We wanted to bring folks together today to really talk about community building because it looks so different in every community. And the reason why we're doing these webinars is we want to create a toolkit at the end of the webinars that will be like a way to share best practices with each other and to support youth that are wanting to create youth groups or collectives, or do similar type work in their communities. Because we get those questions quite a lot. A lot of folks will say like, "Oh, like what you guys do at A7G is so cool, and how do I start something like that with the youth in my community?" It's also a part of the work we did on TRC 66. And so TRC 66 talks about multi-year funding for youth collectives and grassroots collectives, as well as building a national network. And so it's just a continuation of that work that we've been doing for the past few years. Just like, making sure we maintain our relationships and, our networks are really strong. So I'm just gonna put the report in the chat. And if you ever want to read reports, we have a lot on our A7G website. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Rita. And yeah, I can't wait to hear from all of your awesome expertise and knowledge. So Miigwech, hi, thanks for being here today.
Hello everyone, watching this way. Rita, no wait. Alorita Ayakwe, what? Ayakwe Reeta Koostachin Nishtobo, Gobsanikin Vishnakasin, Amushkegog Inanu, Gasho Daskanisin, and Askomau Gishimento, Bagajima Hatagok, Anushkagi Shayak. Hey everybody, my name is Rita and I'm going to be hosting today. I just think creator real quick just for like today's discussion. Happy Sunday and like welcome to the beginning of this series. I've been looking forward to this series for a while now. I'm so excited to hear from everybody and good luck to the panelists. Just share whatever you want to. And just want to remind everybody it's a safe space. And so okay. So I'm going to go into the first question. For everybody, just introduce yourself and including the work you do within community building. So we're going to start with Gabby and then go to Denise and then Skye and then Taryn.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabby Daniels. I'm 18 years old. I'm from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which is Treaty 6 territory. I'm originally from Mistawasas, which is about 45 minutes north of Saskatoon, and Moapa Indian River Reservation, 45 minutes from Las Vegas, Nevada. So I'm international. And I am a part of Young Indigenous Women's Utopia coming out of Treaty 6 territory. And we are a girl-led based group working and striving towards just awareness and positivity for Indigenous girls in our community.
Scanot Seguego, Kanaweta Night Gaso, Ota Yoni ni Wagishauda, Gayo Kono ni Wakwenzoda. So my Ungohoe name is Kanaweta. My English name is Denise Miller. I'm from the Cayuga Nation and Wolf Clan, and I'm from Six Nations. I'm the founder and project manager of Revitalizing Our Sustenance project. So basically it's just a youth-led agriculture project trying to get youth back to the land and learning how to harvest and plant and stuff like that. And I also posted our website on the chat. So if you want to take a look when you're free, feel free. And I'm really happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so Tante, Skye Durocher, Pavjonti Kotinia. So hello everybody, my name is Skye Durocher. I'm from Lake Metis Settlement. Most of my work is usually with Indigenous communities and trying to create really good youth programs. And yeah, my pronouns are she and her, and that's it.
Sorry. Ani kizon stishnakas knabjing donjaba mishikendo dem. Jibwe odawa nishnape kwendao. My English name is Taryn. My Anishinaabe name is Gizons. From Serpent River First Nation, and I'm a member of the Turtle Clan. I'm Ojibwe and Odawa, and my treaty territory is Robinson Huron, which is my community. Serpent River First Nation is located along the north shore of Lake Huron, and yeah, I am a co-founder of the Nimkii Youth Collective, which was founded in 2019. And we work towards lands-based language and cultural revitalization, specifically focusing on, in our language revitalization, focusing on like action-based words that are associated with traditional activities. So for example, there's an entire vocabulary associated with hide tanning, but because hide tanning doesn't happen, or for a long time didn't happen in our communities, those words were more at risk of being lost than everyday conversational language. And that goes for like all traditional practices, because we've been displaced from our traditional practices and from the land. And so my youth collective operates on a year-round lands-based language camp in my traditional territory, which is called Nimkii Azhibikoong Youth Collective.
Oh, hello. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that was great, everybody. I love everybody's introductions. And before we go into more questions, I just want to mention that Rachel is here doing graphic facilitation. So yeah, you can see right there on the screen, actually. It's coming along great. Ooh, yes. So we're going to go to Gabby first. So the question is, can you tell us about what community building means to you and how you've seen community come together through young Indigenous women's utopia?
Yeah, so with our utopia, we're kind of based on the west side of our city. So there's a lot of people that we can like reach out to for like help and stuff. So when I think about community building, I think it means to come together as like a big group. And for our group, it's kind of like a family. And everyone that helps us out literally just becomes a part of our family. And we always connect with them after the fact that they've helped us. And it's just like working together to accomplish a goal for the well-being of our community. What was the other part of the question? Sorry. And how you've seen, okay, so how I've seen, what, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the question. Okay, so how I've seen the community come together is, so with our group, we've created a mural that's just represents who we are as a group, and we want like young Indigenous people to see this mural because there's not a lot for them in Saskatoon. So when that happened, we made a Facebook post looking for spots in the city, and there was like so many people that responded and like told us about spaces and offered us spaces. So just a community call out was what helped us. And people offered like painting spaces for us, offered us paint, smudge like sage, medicines, and a lot of people wanted just to come help us out. So I think that was something that how our community came together. I was kind of jumbled all together. I'm sorry. I'm nervous.
No, that was great. I also heard that you also do zines. Can you tell us a bit more about that as well?
I didn't hear that one part. I'm sorry.
I heard that you also do zines.
What was it? I can't hear that actually. I'm sorry. Can you just
Hello?
yeah.
I also heard that you also work on zines. So can you tell us more about that as well?
On zines?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, okay, okay. That's okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm kind of.
Oh no, it's okay. Yeah. I'm gonna move on to the next question. You did great.
Okay.
Yeah, so the next question is for Denise.
Okay, I'm here.
So your question is talking to us about your community building through food sovereignty.
Okay. This was actually a really big question for me, because first we gotta identify what food sovereignty means, and especially like through an Indigenous concept. And me being like a new farmer and a new plant grower, the term food sovereignty is very new to me, I guess. And I'm still learning a lot about what that means. But through community building, I think you really understand what it truly means to have like food sovereignty, because that's what encompasses, I guess, the goals you're trying to pursue, especially when you're thinking of food sustainability and food access. And a lot of our reserves, we don't have accessibility to our food systems anymore. Like there's only a few growers and a few people that are doing seed saving work too. So that's also comes with sovereignty work. Like what is it that you're trying to accomplish when we're thinking of revitalizing our food systems and seeds? So yeah, it's like a really big question. And then even just going off your personal experience, when you're thinking of food sovereignty, like you have to connect what that means on a personal level. So even for me, like it's shifting and it's changing, because now I'm a new mom. Like I haven't had kids before. So just being new to motherhood and being pregnant, it also changes your way of connecting to food sovereignty and the way you think about food sovereignty work. Because there's a lot of like teachings and a lot of connections between gardening and motherhood. So yeah, it's just been a really big journey for me on what that means. But it's basically, to me, what food sovereignty means and community building is just trying to do the right thing and making sure that your community has access to the foods that we don't have, right? Because if you really think about it, like when you're thinking through a Haudenosaunee context, like one of the biggest things that one of the biggest teachings that we have is like to have a good mind and to operate your livelihood through a good mind. So that connects us to the food that we're eating, and that connects us to how we grow the food too, because if you don't have a good mind and you're not connecting to the food that you grow, then it will grow like, it either won't grow or it will grow kind of like not deformed, but you'll see the way you're thinking into the food you grow. But yeah, like before this presentation, I had to like Google what food sovereignty means, but it's basically freedom to shape your own food systems, and that's always changes, right? Because when you're farming, there's weather changes, there's things that happen in the community, so you have to adapt to the cycles of the weather and what's going on in your personal life. But for me, I think with revitalizing our sustenance, the freedom to shape our own food systems really comes down to gaining back our identity and connection to the food we eat. Because a lot of we see in today's society, we're going to grocery stores, we're buying our own foods, and we don't know what they're putting into our foods, right? So I think it's just really knowing what you eat and how to do it, and also learning more about your identity and how you connect to the food you eat. And even just with food sovereignty work, it also changes the way you want to operate your food system. So for example, in Six Nations, there's a big environmental crisis. Like there's pollution that is happening around our, I guess, farm. So now my food sovereignty work is changing now. So now I have to advocate and do research and more studies on like soil and water testing, because now it's jeopardizing the whole community with their own food system. So now the food sovereignty is changing to policies or environmental advocacy. So it really just depends on your life experiences and what's going on around you. Then your sovereignty work changes over time. So that's the gist of it. I don't want to take up too much time because, but yeah, thank you.
That was great. I just wanted to ask, like, how was working in your community? Like, did you get the chance to work with elders? And like, what did that look like? Like, but
yeah, there was a lot of older people that would just like come and go as the season went. So people would drop by and kind of see what we're doing, or they'd help. But some of the workshops we did a corn harvesting workshop. So we brought in, they weren't necessarily elders, but they were people that grew up in our Longhouse community. So for example, Amy General, she came in and did a corn mat making workshop. So she just kind of told our youth and the participants, like, what was this used for? Why is it important? And the different like crafts we can make out of corn husk. So we're using all of the elements of the corn. And then when you're, I guess, just thinking of the elder part, we opened our gardens like through, I guess, like our ceremonial teaching. So we had a person come in to open it up, and then she kind of like hung out after, so we got to talk to her. And it's just more honestly like, it's legit like community building. Like whoever shows up and wants to help out or wants to hang out, then that's where the conversations start. And I think that's like the best part of learning, right? Is like people that are just genuinely there to be there, and to that, and also if they want to teach you something or talk about their experiences, then that's another way we can like learn and get a deeper connection to what we're growing and why it's important. Because there's one older man, his name's Geronimo, and he's a residential school survivor, and he was there all summer. Like he would just pop in and hang out and everything. So he even got to like share his own stories about being in the mush hole and what they had to do in the school. Well, I wouldn't call it school, but prison basically. But but he would share his experiences of like them farming back in those days, and how basically our agriculture systems got colonized basically. So it's like a very personal way of doing things, I guess. It's not really formal. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I just wanted to just open up more about feeling safe within community, and that was just a really good way to answer that question. So we're gonna go back to Gabby actually.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So I'm caught up now. I feel like really embarrassed from before because I didn't know what was going on. But zine, I think maybe our group leader might have called it a zine. Jen, I don't even know anymore. I'm kind of confused, but she mentioned our book. So about 2 to 3 years ago, Utopia, like the first generation, so like me and about 6 other girls, we wrote a book. And the book is filled mostly with poems, personal stories, like who are we, what we've gone through, and stuff we have to face daily. Interviews, photos from a bunch of our workshops. And it took a long time to actually write. I mean, it took like about a year to write the book, but it kind of just came natural to us because every time we had a group meeting, we'd write in our journals, whether about like how we were feeling or what we learned on that day, like if it was gender-based violence or missing and murdered Indigenous women, and racism just in general, like whatever we talked about, we wrote about it, like if we faced that, or just stuff we've gone through, poems, talking in our own language. And yeah, so that book is probably like 2 to 3 years old now, and we have Utopia 2.0, so that's like legit, that's just literally our younger sisters or our younger cousins in the community that we like, my little sisters in the group, so it's kind of weird now, like there's like Gabby 2.0, but I don't even know if I'm supposed to say this, but they're like writing their own book. I probably wasn't supposed to say that, but they're writing their own book, and it's gonna be super cool to like see that. I'm not actually in the book because I'm not actually home, but I got interviewed for the book, and I felt like really old because I was like, ew, I'm getting interviewed for a book that I wrote back like 2 to 3 years ago. So yeah, but I'm really happy about that. If you guys want a book, you guys can hit me up, or Jen. But yeah, that's about our book, and thank you to whoever DM'd me to catch me up on what Reeta was asking, because it felt really awkward and really bad. But yeah, that's our book, and if you want any more information, just shoot me an email.
Okay, no, it's all good. I just wanted to go into more. So like what we're gonna be doing is making it toolkit with like what we find from like all the panelists. So I just want just like ask if you would have any advice, just like for like younger people, because you are the youngest panelist of the day. And just like Denise said in the chat, you are not old at all. So like
Yeah. I think, well, at least to me, I feel, because like the girls are only like 12 and stuff, even though I'm only 18. But I think I would have to say just be proud of who you are and where you come from, because when I first joined group, I literally like I've gone to a white school my whole life, so I was the only brown kid there, and I think I would just say be proud of who you are and where you come from, because it's not easy sometimes. Be thankful. Don't be scared to talk and speak out against like racism and stuff, especially because I've experienced a lot of racism at my school and stuff, and I thought it was like, just like when I was younger, I thought I was like, oh yeah, that's funny, and then as I go older, I'm like, that was so racist. So speak out when you can, because your voice matters, your opinion matters, and you don't deserve to be talked down to. What else would I have to say? And get involved with the community, because community really does matter. The people that are in your community care for you too, and they'll protect you at all costs, just like family would. So yeah, those are my advice. Yeah.
Yay, that was great. Yeah, it's just really important to like just to support each other. So I really like the way you answered that question. Denise. Okay, the next question is actually going to be for Denise.
Me?
Yes. Where are
Okay.
you? Okay, so can you talk to us about community building through, oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh wait, sorry. It's actually gonna be the Skye.
Bye, yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yes, yeah. Hello, Skye. Okay, so your question is, can you talk to us about some of the challenges you've come across with creating creating safe community spaces?
Yeah, so as somebody who's been a youth worker for a very long time, most of my work is based in like remote Indigenous communities. So always something when you're thinking about creating safe spaces, especially in Indigenous communities, there are so many things that you'll have to think about that just even starting, like even like space, money, all these things, creating like a healthy program, um, like who's running the program, even you have to think about. And then it's like trying to create a really good foundation for youth to even come and want to stay, but also like building kids up and trying to get them invested in your own program. And then once they're invested, then it's like, okay, well, how do you advocate for these kids? How do you get them to not to, you know, amplify their own voices? Because, you know, a lot of the times in small Indigenous communities, like, or a lot of just Indigenous communities, they don't have access to youth workers. They don't have access to just regular programs. So it's like, okay, well, how do you create it? How do you get it off the ground? How do you keep it off the ground? And how do you try to advocate for kids in communities? And how do you try to get them to become, I always say that in order to create healthy kids, you have to have healthy adults, because then those healthy adults are going to create healthy kids. So, and once kids are like, because I've had my program in fishing like for 2 years, I've handed it off to somebody else and he's done a lot of really great work with it, but there's been a lot of push and a lot of pull, especially when it comes to things like LGBTQ2S plus. I, I don't want to use the word issues. I want to say the word awareness. Like, you know, it's no secret that there's two-spirit kids in every Indigenous community. There's two-spirit adults. There's two-spirit elders, but it's always that fear of, um, I don't know, there's always this weird fear of like, oh, what if somebody knows, or what if this, what if that? And we're so busy worrying about the what if that we're not like thinking about people now and like where they're at, and trying to create that awareness, but also trying to take away that stigma. So that's what I've been slowly working on, is like, how do we promote that? How do we promote kids to feel good about their own mental health and their own mental like capabilities? Because that's what's going to create a safe space at the end of the day. It's going to be kids who can come to you and say, hey, you know, I'm having like a terrible time, or, you know, my home isn't the best, or, you know, I'm having um, thoughts and like feelings about the opposite sex. You know, that's what creates safe spaces in communities, is when kids are able to actually use their voice and be listened to. And, you know, we as adults need to listen to those voices, and we need to amplify those voices as well, because I feel like as adults, we are we don't realize how many kids are looking up to us, but also the minute we shut down kids or invalidate their thoughts and their feelings, then they're going to be like, oh, I never want to talk about this again. Because now they're going to have that negative feeling. So I think when we talk about community safe spaces, we also need to talk about community safe adults. Because not every adult is a safe person. So it's identifying, okay, that person is safe. That person is also a safe person to be around. And creating those safe spaces is also creating space that has healthy adults running these spaces. Because you never want to be in a situation where kids don't feel safe to come to programming because an adult is there that they're not comfortable with. And I would never want to put any kids in that place where it's like, I'm not safe to be here. So I think when we think about community safe space, we got to think about adults. We need to think about where kids are at, where kids are going, and most importantly, advocating for those voices. Because I don't think enough people are advocating for kids' voices and working. Because a lot of people are like, oh, they're like 13 years old, they don't have much thoughts. But it's like kids are like the most complex creatures like on the planet, and I love it. Like I ask youth all the time, like, oh, like we should do something like this, and their brains are already like bah. And it's like I love it because as an adult I feel we are so restricted to the way we think. We're immediately thinking of, oh, what's possible, how much money, space, where kids aren't impacted by those things. Kids don't see like money or like all these things. They're like, oh, we should do this and we can all do all these things. So, and they're so pure in the way that they think, and I just love it. They're not tainted by the world yet. you know they're just so amazing. So that's why, yeah, when I think of community safe space, you always have to think about, most importantly, is how are we keeping the kids safe? How are we doing good work for them? So that's just my thoughts.
No, I really like that answer. Um, so I know that us as a group, just like in general, like Indigenous spaces, but oh wait, what am I saying? I know that you really focus on like a smaller protected space within like the larger Indigenous community within your area. Can you like just go into more about that and like why it's important and like
So you want me to talk about like specifically like my community and the work within it?
uh yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. So my community has only 500, maybe 700 people. So we have a very small community. So that usually means that like there's limited funds, there's limited space, there's all these things that we have to deal with. And I've been working with, I think, the kids in Fish and Lake for probably, realistically, for probably like 11 years. But like on a youth worker level, I've been working with them for probably about 4 to 5 years. So I've been on like youth councils. I remember a couple of years ago, me and a couple of people who used to be on this youth council when we were like 18, which was like a while back. We're talking about how we finally are getting a youth center. And I was like, oh my God, guys, like it's been like a minute that we have been asking this. I was like, we've been advocating for a youth space specifically for probably well over 10 years. And I was like, we don't get it, but new kids get it, which is so awesome because I and a lot of the other people never stopped advocating for those things because we knew back then that we needed it. But just because we're adults now and we feel we don't need it doesn't mean that there isn't somebody else who needs it. So when I was working with a lot of kids, I would just create just basic recreational and art programming. But then I started kind of expanding my ideas of like, okay, what do kids actually need? What do kids want? So I started applying for a couple of grants just because, and asking kids like, well, what should we spend it on? And I remember but it was about 2 years ago, we got money for youth care kits. And I asked the kids, I was like, well, what do you want with this? And they all said hygiene products. And like, I never thought of that. I just, the adult in me assumes that every kid has access to like deodorant, to socks, to toothpaste, whatever. And some kids are like, no. I was like, what? Okay, cool. That's great. That's good to know. I was like, I just assumed, which is fair. Like, I don't, I'm not in every person's household and I don't know what they have and what they don't have. So that was a really big eye opener for me, which is like been something that I've been advocating now for, is getting I call it like the youth closet. And it's something that luckily my program that I used to run still has. And it's like filled with like shampoo, conditioner, like hair elastics, everything, like, sanitary products, pads and tampons, all that stuff. So it's really great. And it's all stuff that kids have access to. They just have to go to the building and they just have to open it and they're like, oh, there it is. And then they grab it and go. And we try to make it, as I always tell the kids, we try to make it as painless as possible, because kids are so awkward when they got to ask for stuff. And nobody wants to come in and be like, hey, I need this. So we'd be like, it's there, I ain't gonna look at you, I will leave. I will go do something else, and take what you need, because it's like at the end of the day, like, it needs to go. I was like, I don't want it. And so that's what I used to tell kids all the time, like, if you need it, take it. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, so and so took 3 elastics on April 26th. I was like, take it, I don't want it. Like, and so now we got more funding for youth care kits. And I was talking to some of the kids about it here the other day, and they're like, oh, I'm so excited. And I was like, oh, like, that's so cool. And they're like, even though you're not our youth worker anymore, you're still getting us money. And I was like, yeah, because you guys still need it. Just because I'm not there doesn't mean that the need goes away. I was like, the need's always going to be there. You're always going to need something. And one of the biggest, like, probably the greatest parts of my old program was, I used to ask the kids, what are we going to work on this year? So every year we would create a thing to focus on. And so they do a lot of work with missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, because that's a hard conversation to have with such young people. They understand. And it's talking to them about like real issues that impact them. I was like, let's not tiptoe around it. Indigenous women and girls and men in this country are usually in danger quite a bit, just for simply being Indigenous and walking outside. Your incarceration rates, our stats are so up there compared to the rest of the country. Indigenous women and girls are always in trouble because of things that we can't control. And then we get into these terms of like high risk lifestyle and all this other stuff, and it's just like, so the youth would start advocating for that, and they've done a couple events on it, and they still talk about it. And I was like, just because we run an event and say, hey, stop violence, it's like, how do we stop that? How do we bring awareness? How do we be safe as kids, as teens, as adults? How do we keep each other safe? And how do we put these systems in place to keep ourselves safe? So that was really great. And they started asking about having more cultural programming, which I absolutely love, because as a person who loves culture and loves language, I'm like, yes. Like, I just like, but then I'm like, it's me as the adult who's like, I know that I'm just slowly influencing you because they know that I love culture, I love language, and they've done like drumming. They recently made drums, they make ribbon skirts, they do all these amazing programs, and it's just because they simply ask. And we tried to make it happen. So now they're trying to get together a cultural camp for 3 days. And I'm like, yes, I'm here for it. Because these are all things that I always used to say I never had access to as a teenager or as a youth. Like I never had access to my language. I never had access to my culture. But as an adult, I got that access and I had to go find it when it should have been in community the entire time. But because of all these other things, because of all these barriers that we put up for ourselves in our community, it wasn't available. So I always used to say as an adult, I'm like, I'm going to create opportunities. I'm going to create opportunities for kids that I never had because simply because I can, simply because like, why not? And so that's why I still like work with them. I try to volunteer with them every once in a while, but I also know that I have to work with other communities across Alberta and Saskatchewan. So I try to like give my wisdom as much as possible when it comes to youth programming. But it's also talking about making really good programs for kids who are actually going to come. Because I always say you have the best youth program in the country. But if you're not getting kids' voices, if you're not asking them questions, like there's no guarantee that they'll come. There's no guarantee that the kids that should be in these programs will come to these programs simply because they don't feel welcome. Hopefully that answered your question.
That definitely answered my question. Thank you so much. I just love the fact that you like really give like the spotlight to kids and you just like highlight what they have to say. So I think that's just really important. Thank you for the question. We're gonna go to Taryn. Oh yes. Hello. So with Nimkii, you've literally helped build this community like off the grid with infrastructure and everything. So can you tell us how you got started?
Yeah, so I'm I guess gonna answer this in two parts. First, I just want to say I really appreciate what everyone said. I'm really like inspired by all the work that's happening in everyone's different areas. I know we have to leave at 3, so I'm just gonna try and make this like really short. But essentially, the first half is that the youth group that I'm a part of is not directly tied to the space. Like Nimkii Azhibikoong is not the Nimkii Youth Collective. However, I've been involved with Nimkii Azhibikoong since its inception. But for the creation of our youth group, it started in 2019. And the reason why it started is because I felt a pressure to do so many things and to carry so many things that were really heavy to hold all of the time. And I'm sure that this is something that a lot of other Indigenous people are feeling all the time as well, in the sense that we walk around carrying the weight of a dying language. We walk around carrying the weight of traditions that are passing on, of feeling the emptiness of not knowing certain things or not knowing how to do things that we would have known had we not gone through all of this historical trauma that also impacts our daily life as well. So it was really heavy to hold. And what I really wanted to, I guess, focus on how can I do something, even if that something is really small, such as learning how to like make a basket. That would alleviate some of this heaviness that I walk around carrying every day. And so what happened was I applied, me and another person and an elder. We started an informal grassroots collective, registered at a bank, and that having us registered like formally allowed us to then apply for grants such as Youth Opportunities Fund, which is what I'm currently what our youth group is currently accessing in terms of funding, which is really great and it's really amazing. And I highly suggest people look into what grants are available to them in their area, because having funds helps a lot. But in terms of the physical space of Nimkii Azhibikoong, that started in 2017. And it started because there was, again, that same feeling of when you're working within Western institutions, there's not a lot of flexibility in terms of your ability to do things with an Indigenous point of view. And when they do allow Indigenous point of view in a Western institution, there always has to be some kind of sacrifice. And that sacrifice always has to come from your Indigenous knowledge. The Western institution is never willing to sacrifice anything. And so one of the things that we always relate this to is like, you want to make maple syrup in a Western institution. The Western institution will say, yeah, you can make maple syrup here, but it has to be between the hours of 1 and 4. And it's like, well, maple syrup doesn't know that. Like the sap's not gonna only run between 1 and 4. Like it runs when it wants. And we are like kind of, you know, we're dictated by the natural life that's happening around us. That's our governance. It tells us how we're supposed to act and what we're supposed to do. And so Nimkii Azhibikoong happened because we realized like, okay, all of these things that we want to do and that we want to create and have a space to learn these things has to happen outside of the Western institution. So we started this camp outside of the reserve boundaries on the traditional territory of my ancestors and the people in the area's ancestors as well. And it started off in 2017. And when we first started, there was nothing there. Like, it was just like, we were like in the sticks. And there was like, we made a fire pit, and that was the first thing that went up. And we had a pipe ceremony, sacred fire. And then everything happened. Like for a long time, we were just like one tent in the bush. And now there's like some infrastructure. And yeah, when you're talking about wanting to like reclaim land, permanent infrastructure makes a really big difference. It's like really important. And I think it's something that a lot of people kind of underestimate, how much of a game changer having like a steady permanent infrastructure, because it enables you to be there all year round, which the language camp is there all year round. And we have people living there all year round. And but yeah, it didn't happen overnight. It definitely like, it took time. And the aspect of community building that I would say was most important during that period is being able to create relationships amongst myself and the other people at the camp, myself and my community, myself and my nation, but also myself in relation to the land that I was on. So having reciprocal relationships with the lake that I live by, with the trees that I tap, with these trees that we were taking down to build things out of, that was also community building. Going out there and setting net was community building with myself and the community of fish that live in the water. All of these things like happened over a period of time. And I would say that to people who are hoping to do something similar or trying to work within community in whatever aspect in their own areas, is that, you know, things don't happen as immediate as you would like them to. Everything takes time. And during that time, there's going to be a lot of hardship. And that's why having like support and having people that you love and that love you in your area makes a big difference. And sometimes as people, we can become so goal oriented that we kind of forget the fact that we're human beings and we need other people and we need support. We need to feel loved and accepted, and other people need that as well. So if we're aware that I am a being that needs to be loved and accepted, then that enables me to also approach everyone else that I encounter with love and acceptance, because I know how important it is. And when you're talking about community building in whatever respect, that's something that I always think of and go forward first, is like approaching with love, approaching with acceptance and respect, not just for human beings, but also the land. So yeah, I'm sorry. I guess, yeah, I'll stop because we're like 2:55. But yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to share a little bit. I don't know if that actually answered your question. I'm sorry.
No, that was really, it was really nice. Like, it was really beautiful. Like, we're so soft as like a people, and I'm just like, oh, everybody has like really nice words to say. So yeah, I'm just gonna go to the next question. It's gonna be for you, all, but I'm gonna ask Denise to go first. So the question is just like more general. Can you share some best practices for community building from your experience? So just focusing on best practices.
Best practices. It's probably just like going out and doing the work with everybody. You know, like you really get to see everyone's characteristics, their work ethic, and even the dedication to the work that they're doing. So I think, and just including people, being involved, like making sure everyone's invited to what you're trying to achieve, or any goals or objectives that you're trying to go for, is just ask people, invite people out to be on the journey with you, really. Like it's all comes down to like being involved with each other and going through the journey with each other. And yeah, there's going to be ups and downs and everything, but I think when you all have like the same passions or goals and whatnot, it makes things easier because you're all on the same level of the work that you're trying to do. So I think like that would probably be a best practice. I don't know, there's lots to go from, but I think just being honest with the people that are involved and inviting people, and making sure that they're accountable, but also yourself is accountable, because there's going to be times where you make mistakes, and there's going to be times where it's like, oh, I didn't make the right decision, or I could have done this better and stuff. But like, it all just comes down to accountability and being honest with yourself. And if you do need help with some things that you're trying to do, then just communicate with people, because it's almost like I think as Indigenous people, it's like when the tough gets going, like there's always someone there to help you and uplift you. So like if you're grieving or going through things, like there's always someone there to like hop back in and do your work. And then when they're going through something, then it's like someone else picks it up. So just making sure that you're all on the same page and you all have like the same goals and passions, I guess. Like, of course they're going to be different, but the end goal is like community, right? So it makes things a lot easier, and it's enjoyable too, because they're all on the same level, and you all are building your own community. Because sometimes like people like myself, like we might not come from like a well-rounded or positive family. So in my reality, I'm kind of creating my own family. So my garden peeps are like my brothers and sisters. So it's really just kind of what kind of family do you want to create, or what kind of environment you want to work in or build from. So that's about it.
Yay, that was really good. Yeah, so you definitely answered the question, and I know you have to get going for 3, so that's why I just wanted to let you go first. You can step out anytime you want now. I think you did a great job today. Thank you. Is there anything else you like want to add quickly?
Thanks for inviting me, and I'm really happy I got to hear everyone speak and kind of listen to what work they're doing, and keep going. I know it gets tough, but we're all rooting for each other, so keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, so just before we go into the other answers, I just wanted to check on Rachel. Are you doing all right?
I'm doing good here, getting trying to get everything, but everybody's saying so much great stuff, so I hope I get it all.
Definitely, it looks really good.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So we're just going to go back to the question, and let's go with Gabby. It does look deadly. The question, did you need to repeat it?
No, I can see it on my screen. I think the best practice that I've seen from my experience was when we painted our mural for a city. If you haven't seen it, I think you can see it on our Instagram. I don't know the Instagram name like by my top of my head, but when we had this idea, we had to reach out to people. We did the community call out, and so many people reached out to us. And then with that, we wanted to invite those people that like helped us out to come paint. And we had a lot of people that came and showed up, because when I thought about a mural, I thought it was like easy work, like you just paint it and you're done. But it took so much like painting and just doing the little details. So getting to invite like all our aunties and like cousins and family was amazing. Like a bunch of my family came and helped out. So that was really awesome to see. And it was just great to invite people that have like helped us, and then they get to help us like with the painting as well. So they're a part of it too. I thought that was like one of the best practices that I've seen, just because I want to try and say something inspirational, like what's that village quote, like you can't something, but it literally took a village we probably wouldn't have gone far, but it's awesome and I'm really happy for it and our community. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like how you got like your family involved and like that, just because like a lot of the time community is like found family. So yeah. Yeah, so same question. We're gonna go to Skye.
No, I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Oh, it's okay. I can repeat it. So we're just gonna go best practices for community building.
Best practices. No, I guess the immediate thing that comes into mind is, what do you want to like? What's the end game? I guess who's this for? What impact is this going to have? And most of all, I guess, like, is this gonna do something positive for the community? Does this benefit the community? And does this benefit the kids? That's it.
Nice, 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 very nice. Yeah, Taryn, do you have the question? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so in terms of best practices or for community building, I would say that one, having a clear intention is really important, because having an identified intention allows you to like create goals that you can work towards. Because when you start off with this idea of something that you want to create, especially when that idea is like so overreaching into multiple different like fields or multiple different skills that you want to acquire, it can feel so overwhelming. And so having like a clear intention. So for myself and my group, that intention was always language revitalization, language acquisition. And then from that, we were able to branch off and focus on other things that fell in line with language acquisition, but also enabled us to talk about like, well, with language acquisition, maybe we should also be helping fluent speakers who are fluent, who are carriers of the language, but might not have other fluent people to talk to. That's something that's equally important. Although that wasn't our original mission to do that, our intention was this thing. And that allowed us to have, I guess, other organic goals kind of pop up as a result of like, I guess, just like knowing what we were focusing on, and two, knowing that like community building looks different to everyone. And for myself, being in kind of like a rural area, having lands-based approach was something that was really important. And, you know, it seems kind of funny, but to us, like in my community, anytime you go outside your house, you're like in a land-based setting. But to people who are in like a larger urban setting, like it's not the same. And so going out to the bush is like a big deal for people who are like in a large urban setting. But like people back home, like going out into the bush isn't really a big deal because you do it every day, like even just walking down the road. So trying to identify like, what do the people in your area that you're trying to create community with, what are their needs or what are their interests? And you know, keeping that in mind when you're planning, when you're creating, I guess. And another thing that I would say is like really important is asking yourself, is what I'm doing sustainable to my own mental health, to my environment, to the land that I'm on? Am I trying to do things sustainably? Because when you're a young Indigenous person who has a lot of drive and a lot of motivation, there's a tendency to take on something that's really heavy to carry. And because Indigenous people are really strong, we're able to do it, you know? But over time, like understanding like maybe all of the stuff that I'm doing isn't sustainable, and how do I ask for help? Or seeing someone else who's doing so much all the time and saying, how can I step up to help this person and create something that's more sustainable? Yeah, because there's so much of much that you can't even name it all these things that have to be done. And so empowering other people to take up different positions according to what their own interests in is alleviates that, because then you're not one person trying to take and carry everything. You have a community of people to rely on that can carry other things. And that's why I think community is really important, because that's how we're going to move forward as a nation that's trying to heal from all of these things. It's in the community and the way that we act in relation to all these other people who are also doing that work. And that's why I'm really happy to like see everything that's going on in other people's communities, because it gets rid of a little bit of my own existential dread because I know that this work is happening everywhere, and I'm really grateful. So I don't know. I guess that's like what I would say a best practice for community building is.
Yes, any win is a win for all, you know. We're just going to go into a Q&A session. If there's any questions from people. I'll give them some time. So how we doing? Okay, so if there's no questions, oh well, you can still submit them, but I think we're gonna we're going to just like stop recording, just so we and like open up the space for anybody to just like say any like parting words or like what they reflected on today.